Hello and welcome to Hardtalk India. Although it was withdrawn quickly, Prime Minister Vajpayee's surprise resignation has become the subject of intense speculation. Was he serious? What lay behind it? And how will it impact on his record in office? With me is the Parliamentary Affairs Minister of India, a gentleman who's considered a close confidant of the Prime Minister, Pramod Mahajan. Mr. Mahajan, let's start with the Prime Minister's surprise resignation. Was it, as many have said, a political gimmick, or was he serious?
I don't think it was a political gimmick. I know Vajpayee for the last 30 years, and he's not known in the country to play political gimmicks.
So he seriously wanted to resign?
Yes, he seriously wanted to resign. He has expressed his desire to resign in the BJP parliamentary party, where I was there as a parliamentary affairs minister conducting the meeting. And suddenly, normally he doesn't speak in this meeting, he listens to the members. But suddenly he asked me that I want to speak, and then he just said that I want to resign, and he expressed his desire.
It happened suddenly, but you say it was completely serious, and yet 1 hour later he'd withdrawn his resignation.
No, it was serious because even after the meeting he went to his office in the parliament. His secretary made a call to the president. They sought an appointment, and when I saw him in the office, he has a handwritten note which he wrote himself to the president. So I don't, as I know Vajpayee, I don't think he does all kinds of dramas, asking the president's appointment, writing by himself. And when one of the senior colleagues took out that note, he said, what makes a difference? I will write one more. So this whole episode, right from his expression of his desire to resign in the parliamentary party till he is withdrawn when he was persuaded by the senior colleagues, his whole behavior makes me feel that he was serious and there was no political gimmick or a political shock.
But just look at it. After breakfast and before lunch, he resigns and withdraws his resignation. Serious prime ministers don't behave like that. In 2.5 or 3 hours, you resign, withdraw your resignation. It looks like, how did the opposition call it, high drama and low comedy.
You see, after expressing the desire, there were only two things to happen. Either he should have seriously expressed his desire, went to the president's house and resigned. When people talk about why he withdrew in 2 hours, I think if he has to withdraw, he should withdraw as early as possible. Because I'll let you know why we forced him to withdraw as early as possible, because there was no point in speculating throughout the day he has resigned, whether his resignation is accepted or not. As you rightly put up, he was a prime minister of a country of 1 billion people. And when he expressed his desire, the desire already was on electronic media. And so even I can say personally responsible, one of them personally responsible, to convince him that no, first he can't resign, and secondly, he can't even wait to revise his decision, because if he would have waited for a day, I think more complications would have happened.
All right, I grant you, it wasn't a political gimmick. But was it then an act of emotional blackmail designed to silence critics that he didn't know how to answer? In other words, people were asking questions, he didn't know how to answer their questions, and his only recourse was to emotionally blackmail them.
I'm not sure which questions you are talking about, because even his worst enemy will never criticize him that he doesn't know how to answer. But you see, one of the best quality we have is the best orator we have ever seen in our country.
He used to be the best orator. Increasingly of late his oratory is
even yesterday in the parliament, who has heard him on Indo-Pak summit, I think they will have the same opinion. But at this juncture, it's not a question whether he was or is an orator. The question is whether he had questions or not.
Okay, let's come to that. Let's come to some of the criticisms that have been leveled against the Prime Minister and against the Prime Minister's office. 24 hours before his resignation, Sanjay Nirupam stood up in the Rajya Sabha and virtually accused senior officials of the PMO and perhaps even the Prime Minister's own son-in-law of being involved in the UTI scam. Was the Prime Minister resigning to shut up people like Nirupam?
First thing no. Sanjay Nirupam's speech in Rajya Sabha has no relevance to Prime Minister's resignation desire.
Except that it happened exactly 24 hours earlier.
It may be, because it can be called as a last straw. The question
and your party spent the whole of the last 3 days trying to put pressure on the Shiv Sena to force Nirupam's apology.
No, I don't think, if you look at the stature of Vajpayee, I don't think even talking about Sanjay Nirupam, his apology, is worth that. So I don't think that was the issue.
Okay, let's back off Nirupam.
The issue, that's why I'm saying, the issue in Prime Minister's mind is, and that's the real problem, and that really made him anguished about the situation, is that the National Democratic Alliance, which is heading for last 3 years, one time or the another, one constitute or the another, I don't want to even single out Sanjay Nirupam as a person or Shiv Sena as a party, have always behaved in a manner that they want to have the pleasure of being in the government also, and they want to occupy the opposition space also.
Precisely.
And
The
I
Prime
think-
Minister, when he
I
gave his resignation, said this. He said one reason why he was resigning
that's the only
is
reason.
because he failed to lead the NDA cohesively and to impose discipline.
Yes, yes, I'm not disputing that, because
Mr. Mahajan,
he said it on
those
record.
are good reasons for resigning. Those are not reasons for continuing in office. If he genuinely believed that he had a fractious alliance, that they were quarreling, that they were in fact eating into themselves, then that's the best reason for resigning and letting someone else more capable bring them together with discipline.
Right, right. Your
So why
question-
did he continue?
No, your question is right. But those who are so-called capable, when told them that you are more capable than me, so you can't just leave the country at this juncture and say that you choose your own leader.
There have been
The leaders who are so-called number 2, 3, 4, 5 are all probable prime ministers you may call after
This
replacing
is a very
NDA.
strange situation. As you say, the Prime Minister correctly analyzed his failure to give cohesive discipline to the NDA. Having analyzed his failure, he continues in office knowing that he can't do very much about
No,
it.
no, I don't say that. No, now the time will say that whether he can do or he cannot. Wait for only a couple of months.
So you're saying the
Let the
jury's
parliament
out.
session be
Even
over.
you have doubt in your mind. You can't say with certainty to me that the Prime Minister can make the NDA cohesive.
No,
You're
no, I
saying
said
time
it-
will say.
No, no, time will say, because there are few plans which I can't announce at this juncture when Parliament is in session. But I'm sure in next 2 months, Prime Minister will, and not only Prime Minister, now even the National Democratic Alliance, which requested him the next day to continue the leadership, has realized that this indiscipline cannot go like this. And
Let me
one has-
interpret that. Are you saying that something will happen in the next 2 months that will change the nature of the NDA?
I don't say nature of the NDA, the nature of the members on which the Prime Minister has an anguish, that if you have a problem, you see
Are you saying the Prime Minister has given the NDA 2.5 months to put themselves
I
right,
don't-
to set the house in order?
I don't say, I said he will show you how he will lead it. He has not given any time
And
to
if he
NDA.
fails because he's had 3.5 years and he hasn't succeeded to impose discipline and to make them cohesive, so if in 2.5 months he fails, then what?
I don't think he will fail. So
That's
there's
only
no
a
question.
thought,
The
that's a
story-
hope, that's
No,
not
no,
a guarantee.
No, no, that's a guarantee. You may think it a hope. For me, it's a guarantee,
Okay.
because I'm sure about it.
Let's take it as a guarantee. Let's come back to the issue of the charges leveled against the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office. You said that Sanjay Nirupam is just one person. He's not. 6 months ago, your own former party president publicly on television was heard by millions of people saying that Brijesh Mishra and Ranjan Bhattacharya were involved in fixing deals. Sanjay Nirupam was neither the first time, nor does it seem to be the only time that serious allegations have been leveled against the Prime Minister's office.
First thing, your quote is a complete lie. A quote is complete lie. This quote is not there. This is not on Tehelka tapes which you are referring.
On the
that they
Tehelka,
are in deals.
let me
Absolutely not.
correct you.
They
On
are
the
on deals.
Tehelka tapes, Bangaru Lakshman says that although Ranjan Bhattacharya is not involved in defense deals, he believes he has been involved in fixing power deals. And as regards Brijesh Mishra, he says, and I'm paraphrasing him, we have frequently gone to him for such things because he's involved in such matters.
You see, as
Those
I
are paraphrases of what he says.
As I said, the Tehelka episode is investigated at this juncture. Now, picking one sentence here and there, which has been denied by the concerned president, I can't answer the questions, but I can only say that as far as Mr. Brijesh Mishra is concerned, he works in an official capacity as the principal secretary to the Prime Minister, and nobody does deals in this government. You must also remember that till today, not even one minister has been charged with any kind of evidence as far as any kind of corruption charges are concerned.
Let's in fact talk about Mr. Brijesh Mishra. One of the promises with which this government came to power 3.5 years ago was the promise of clean government, the promise of the highest standards of probity in public life. How do you square that promise with the fact that the Prime Minister's principal secretary, his former secretary, and perhaps his son-in-law today face charges, allegations of corruption?
Now, what are the charges? You see, in a democratic system, Anybody can make a charges. What are the charges? You talked about...
Mr. Mahajan, have you heard the English phrase, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion?
I heard it, but I'm not sure about even
It
Caesar.
means that people closest to Caesar should be above suspicion. If Caesar's wife should be above suspicion, what about Caesar's principal secretary? What about his son-in-law?
Caesar, anybody's wife should be above suspicion. That's not an issue. The issue is, in a democracy, you have opposition parties who would not like this government to continue, and if they make allegations, you can't stop them. What is the way to make? Suppose sitting here, I make an allegation on anybody, and then you say that, look, you are not above. Suppose I make an allegation against you, and then say, look, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. Why you are not?
Let me give you the example of George Fernandez.
No.
He resigned. Let me finish. He resigned not because he was admitting or accepting guilt. He resigned, as he said on television, because his continuation as defense minister would have affected the morale of the defense forces. Surely that applies to Brajesh Mishra. Brajesh Mishra heads the Prime Minister's office. His continuation after allegations have been levelled twice in 6 months by people who are your allies or your former party president. In those circumstances, his continuation will affect the morale of the PMO, its integrity, and the government's reputation for clean governance.
This may be, I think we have started talking about the Prime Minister, and we have landed up talking with the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister as if that is the main issue.
Not at all. But talking about the Prime Minister's office, we're talking about the fact that the Prime Minister sought to resign 24 hours after Sanjay Nirupam levelled serious allegations against senior officials in his office.
Can you for a minute tell me what is the serious allegation which is levelled by Mr. Sanjay Nirupam against Prime Minister's office? You said it half a dozen times.
Absolutely.
What is that allegation?
The allegation is that telephone calls were made from and received by senior officials of the office, either at the time of or, let me finish, on the very day that the cyberspace deal was being done. In other words, he's claiming that the officials at UTI changed their initial mind under the influence of telephone calls. He wants it investigated.
These are your interpretations.
These are allegations.
No, he did not make. Just let me answer. First thing, as far as the investigation part is concerned, there is a joint parliamentary committee probing into it, and they will investigate it. And you and I and everybody must wait for it. Now, if you say making a telephone call, many times the telephone calls are made. You see, Prime Minister's office, if he's in contact with the UTI office, what is wrong in it? You don't expect the Prime Minister's office to be in contact with the financial institutions. Only somebody has made a call and something happens. Suppose I make a call to somebody and something happens in his house after half an hour. Does this mean that my call is related to that unless you prove it?
Now,
this is a strange situation.
I'm
answering. So you are questioning. So let me answer. So I'm not questioning you. What I'm trying to tell, you can't have a jurisprudence in this country that somebody makes a call and suppose something happens on the day, then you conclude you don't need any evidence other than a call which is made for 2 minutes.
Not at all. You need investigation, I grant it. But when you are a government committed to the highest standards of probity in public life, when you are a government that has come to power promising clean governance, then it behoves you that people against whom such slurs have been cast should step aside, so that the very highest office, let me finish, so that the very highest office in government, the Prime Minister's office, is not besmirched.
So I like to,
Such an example.
I'm sorry, with this logic, the Prime Minister will have to change his principal secretary every other day. You have about 800 MPs and 800 magazines in this country. Somebody who has to remove the principal secretary, he has to say that he made this call, that call. You don't need, because with your logic, if I were the Prime Minister, I will have to change my principal
Mr.
secretary
Mahajan, if
every
you really
day.
believe in good, clean government, then you have to believe in the principle that Caesar's wife should be above suspicion. Serious suspicion is cast by people who are your allies, by people who are your former party president.
Again, I'm saying, what are the serious allegations? As I said, a telephone call.
We're going around in circles. Let me quote to you what Mr. Vajpayee himself said way back in 1972. At the time Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, her son Sanjay Gandhi was being accused of corruption. Mrs. Gandhi was thought to be protecting him. This is what Mr. Vajpayee said in the Lok Sabha. He said, the Prime Minister enjoys the people's confidence, and yet for the sake of a small factory of her son, she has given the people the chance to point a finger at her. This is not an instance of mother's love. Madam, this is an instance of disregard for the limits of public life. I put it to you, today the Prime Minister is in a position where he himself can be accused of disregarding the same limits.
No. because you are comparing apple with oranges. Can you tell me what this government, like Sanjay Gandhi got this Maruti factory? I don't want to go into detail because I don't think we have a time to discuss Maruti factory and Sanjay Gandhi at this juncture in Mrs. Gandhi's regime. Can you quote me one thing which Mr. Ranjan Bhattacharya got from this government? One license?
It's not a question of licenses, it's a question of allegations.
It's not question. I'm sorry. What the allegation?
The point has come where if you believe in the honesty, integrity of the government and your commitment, then you should say to Mr. Brajesh Mishra, as you said to George Fernandez, step aside. Take George's example.
No, I think you're not allowing me to answer.
Please answer.
You're not allowing me to answer. The first thing, as I said, if you are comparing the Sanjay Gandhi's case, Sanjay Gandhi got a license of a small car factory when his mother was a prime minister. Now, before you proceed, you will have to tell me some, I saw total evidence, we are not sitting in a court, we are discussing a public perception. You will have to tell me what Mr. Ranjan Bhattacharya got, a license, a factory, something, some appointment.
Bangaru Lakshman,
No,
I've already told you, is on record saying that Ranjan Bhattacharya is involved in fixing power deals.
Bangaru and I both have denied. If you tell it 10 times, it doesn't become
But we've
truth.
all heard him say it. We saw it on television.
No, as I said, see, you have not heard it. That's why I said, no, I can't bring that 8-hour tape and debate with you it happened or not.
So you're saying, in fact, he was stitched up, that those are not his words, that it's all make-believe?
No, I'm not saying anything. See, I'm not.
But then what are you saying?
No, that's what I'm trying to tell you, but you are not ready to listen to me. You see, as I told you, these Sanjay Gandhi case and Ranjan Bhattacharya case are not identical.
Not as
Neither,
yet.
neither,
Not
neither.
as yet, I grant that. I completely grant
Neither he got anything from
But
government
Mrs.
nor
Gandhi
from political
didn't promise
party.
the highest standards of probity. Mrs. Gandhi didn't
No,
come
I
to
don't
power
want to
promising
comment.
clean
See, I don't
government.
want
You
to-
did. You actually came to power to
Yes,
say that you
yes,
were going to
and-
sweep the Congress record aside and set a new
That's
example.
why I said. That's why I said that this is the first government in this country. In this government, from prime minister to downwards, nobody today has accused even one single minister against any charge of corruption. If that is not probity, I don't know, then you'll have to change the
All
dictionary.
right, let's accept that. We leave the audience to judge precisely how they wish to interpret the Prime Minister's office of resignation, whether this is emotional blackmail, whether this is an attempt to cover up for people in his office who he thinks can't answer the charges made against them, or whether this
whether
is
it's a
just
genuine.
anguish and genuine. Let's move to the other promise on which you came to power 3.5 years ago. The promise of, as Mr. Advani called it, Suraj, good governance. Do you think you've been able to fulfill it?
Yes, I'm sure about it. Because if you look at 3 years, except the economic slowdown, which is a worldwide, we could keep the growth rate 6+. We could keep the inflation in control. We could fight the Kargil war. Today, India has maximum friends internationally. So the decisions taken on roads, power, all sectors, that shows that we tried our level best to give a Suraj. I'm not really
Let's start
apologetic
with the
about it.
example of Manipur. On June the 14th, your government agreed to extending the Naga ceasefire without territorial limits. 6 weeks later, it's revoked its position. Today, many believe that 4 years of negotiations with the NSCN are about to unravel. That's not good governance. That's the government tying itself up in knots.
No, I think now we have come from...
I'm taking examples of good governance and questioning it.
You can take any example you want. If you discuss Manipur, we can discuss Manipur. Manipur is not a problem created during BJP regime.
But the decision to extend the ceasefire happened during the BJP regime.
Yes, I'm just analyzing. So to answer your question, I can say that we took a decision on 14. The decision of earlier ceasefire and this ceasefire was only one difference. Because Nagas don't only live in Nagaland.
I understand the background. What I'm trying to understand is the fact that you've tied yourself in knots. You do one thing, 6 weeks later you revoke it.
So I don't think in a democratic government, if the Manipur people has objected to it, and if the central government has conceded their demand, I think in a democracy, when people agitate, there were agitations, the parliament...
But anyone could have told you what the response in Manipur or Assam or Arunachal Pradesh would have been long before you agreed to the extension. One thought that you'd taken it into account. We now discover you haven't.
No, sir. That's a false statement. This decision was not taken unilaterally by the central government. there was a discussion in the chief ministers of Northeast Council.
And how many did you forget to consult? That's another level of good governance that I
No,
want
no,
to
no.
bring
You
up.
see, again,
you forgot to consult Tarun Gogoi. You even forgot to consult Ved Marwa, the man you yourself appointed as governor in
Again, when the
Manipur.
decision was taken, again these two examples are the examples how you distort the facts. The first thing is Ved Marwa is a governor. Before that, the chief minister was consulted. And as far as Mr. Tarun Gogoi is concerned, he just got elected only 3 weeks before the ceasefire.
So you don't consult him? 3 weeks is a long enough time to pick up a phone call and have a telephone conversation?
It's a long enough time. But as I said, Assam is not a primary issue in this. Assam is not a primary issue.
What about
Assam
Manipur?
doesn't have
The
Naga.
governor you appointed was not informed, leave aside consulted?
As I said, that his chief minister was consulted when the decision was taken.
But you appointed the governor. You got rid of the chief minister, so you didn't consult the man you
We don't
appointed.
have to consult again and
How
again
about
everybody.
informing him? How about
No,
informing
he
him?
was informed.
He went public on the front page of the Indian Express to say he had no knowledge of this.
He has no knowledge that shows his understanding power, because
Okay.
the decision, if the governor doesn't have the knowledge of what his appointing authority is doing, then it doesn't speak
Okay,
about
you're saying the
appointing
governor is
authority.
at fault, not the government.
Well, what is the government
Let's
falling?
come to the question of UTI. Everyone in the country since 1998 has known when your government had to bail out UTI that there are serious problems there. Yet in July, what does your finance minister say on the floor of parliament? I didn't know anything was wrong at UTI. What sort of governance is that?
Nobody said this. You see, again, this is a distortion. What my prime minister, what my finance minister said on the floor of the house, that I don't influence the UTI's decision as far as day-to-day functioning is concerned. A general policy decision, definitely the finance minister is always worried. He doesn't control the stock market, but he's worried about what
Mr.
happens.
Mahajan, on the 13th of March 2001, several MPs on the floor of Parliament told Mr. Yashwant Sinha that the next scam waiting to happen was going to be at UTI. He had knowledge of it from the opposition. 3 years ago, he had to put in 3,000 crore to bail out UTI. Those two facts being the case, how come he didn't continuously monitor the situation? How come he turned around and said that I was not told there was a problem?
No, can I ask you a question? That do you mean that the finance minister should have monitored day-to-day investments of a UTI, which is an autonomous institution under Indian Parliament Act?
Yes, particularly given the extent of coverage in the newspapers about the perilous state of UTI, given the fact that 3 years ago you had to bail it out, given the fact that on the 13th of March this year, the opposition was taunting you. The opposition was taunting you.
See, 13 March, UTI 3000, you have said it second time, so I understood it. So it's nothing new. What I'm trying to tell you, that how the mutual funds work. In the mutual funds, you appoint a chairman and then you have a body which looks into it. Do you want the Indian finance minister to monitor? You see, this is the double talk. On one way, you say you don't monitor it, and another way, you make allegation that the finance minister...
Do you know what the end result was?
No, don't allow me to... On one side, you make allegations that the finance minister was not monitoring UTI to the extent he should have been. And on other side, you make an allegation that finance minister or somebody was monitoring an investment of A company and B company. Now, both the things cannot be right at the same time.
I didn't make the second allegation.
No. It's not a question of, I'm not talking only your allegations. It's talking what UTI is discussed in the public
You know,
today.
Mr. Mahajan, I'm hearing you. You began by saying the Prime Minister's offer of resignation was serious. You said he was anguished. I put something to you. He was anguished because serious allegations of corruption have been leveled at senior officials, which anguishes and worries him because he doesn't like the situation. He was anguished because good governance is not forthcoming. Because whether it's Manipur, whether it's UTI, whether it's the outcome of the Agra summit, which we haven't had a chance to discuss, in every instance, this government seems to have bungled. That's why he offered his resignation. He was serious, no doubt, as you say. He was accepting responsibility for the failures of his government.
I don't know who is interviewing whom, because I think you are taking more time than the person whom you called here to answer. Now the whole speech you made just now, you made it in last half an hour 10 times. Now that is your version. I can't stop you or anybody to draw conclusions. As far as I'm concerned, as I said, this government has nothing done, nothing wrong is done in the Prime Minister's office, nothing wrong done in the Prime Minister's house. As I explained, Mr. Ranjan Bhattacharya is a son-in-law, and many Prime Ministers, politicians can have sons, daughters, son-in-law and father-in-law, so it's not a crime to be there. and he has not done anything which warrants such kind of acquisition which you are making. You are not giving an iota of evidence on anything. You are going allegations, and it's very unfortunate that like an opposition party, you are making allegations. So these are all allegations with not a shred of evidence. And as I said, this government under the leadership of Vajpayee has given the cleanest government. The allegations are same repeated allegations, son-in-law and PMO, son-in-law and PMO. Nobody is talking about even one minister. No proof has been given. Nothing has been proved.
Okay.
And still if you say it, still you have a right to...
Mr. Mahajan, we'll leave the last word with you. Thank you very much for speaking to Hard Talk India.
Thank you.